very obvious to us as a political party and to the country that the government does not intend to address the corruption scandal that has engulfed the Ministry of Education and the Caribbean Maritime Institute University in a fulsome manner. The People's National Party is therefore obliged to remind the public of the pervasive corruption which has and is being uncovered almost on a weekly basis, and the serious effect all of this is having on the entire enterprise of education in our country. The Holness-led administration and the Prime Minister himself, in his role as Minister of Education, has remained silent and, in our view, has not handled the corruption scandals in a fulsome or an effective manner. We believe that the Prime Minister has a responsibility to first tell the country the information that was available to him prior to the firing of Ruel Reid and what he did when that information became available to him. We also have serious concerns about the Prime Minister remaining the Minister of Education. In the former, in the Ministry of Energy, Science and Technology, after Andrew Wheatley resigned, the Prime Minister assumed the role of minister in that ministry. During that period of time, the ministry was virtually at a standstill, with many critical developments put on hold, simply because the Prime Minister had so much on his plate and has assumed more responsibility than any other Prime Minister in the history of the country. We are now seeing a similar issue play out in the Ministry of Education, where after the firing of Ruel Reid, the Prime Minister has assumed responsibility as minister. And again, critical developments in that ministry are on hold because the ministry does not have someone who can devote full-time attention. We have concerns about the assignment of the minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation to that ministry, and whether that minister has any legal authority to act as the Minister of Education and to sign, approve, or do anything in the capacity as a Minister of Education. We believe the Prime Minister needs to address this in a fulsome way. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, MP Thwaites, to outline some of the other issues that are affecting the ministry and the overall education sector arising from the various scandals.
There is a certain reluctance, on my part certainly, to return to this issue. Education cannot stand the level of controversy that is now overtaking it. Education, by the policy of the People's National Party and indeed the Jamaica Labour Party, ought to be beyond any suspicion of partisan advantage. It is the truly quintessential national enterprise. And the People's National Party is constrained to say at this time that the Ministry of Education and indeed the entire educational enterprise is being weakened by the factors mentioned by Julian Robinson earlier. By his own acknowledgement, Minister Carl Samuda is learning and sees himself in a standing-in position at the Ministry of Education at a time when visionary, decisive, and inspiring leadership is required. The regretful controversies that have been raised are compromising attention to some vital and under-attended issues to do with education. One spectacular trouble has been the former permanent secretary, now claiming that he is the subject of improper procedure or that allegations have been made against him which are untrue. We've had the unusual and distasteful issue of the Caribbean Maritime Institution attempting to confront institutions of the same government regarding the disclosure of information which the security authorities are requesting. Why was the permanent secretary removed? What is the claim that he has? But this thing goes deeper than personalities and individual instances. Some systemic issues regarding governance in Jamaica arise. Who did authorize the wild expenditure that has obviously taken place in the Ministry of Education since 2016? My knowledge of the system is that it is very, very involuted and difficult to secure payments and disbursements. Who authorized them? Who knew what? What is the code of silence within the ministry that seems to be affecting these investigations that have dragged on now for what, 4 months? And there's a broader question, you know. What about the capacity of agencies to go rogue, unchecked? Julian Robinson mentioned the issue with Caribbean Maritime University, but it's wider than that. I have received concerns from education interests in the diaspora who are wondering how much trust they can put in the National Education Trust. The miasma, the cloud surrounding the contracting and the activity of this Mistress Dunswell raises that issue. What is happening to that money? How much is being collected and how is it being devolved for the transformation of education, which they are contributor, wish to contribute to? These issues are unclear. And there's another issue that arises from that. The argument to have delayed response on all of these issues is being advanced that we have to wait until investigations are complete. The party, the People's National Party, rejects that. It is perfectly possible to deal with issues of nepotism, of embezzlement and fraud, to show what you have discovered and what steps you propose to take, quite independent of any criminal investigation. That is a smokescreen that is being put over this event, and the people of Jamaica and education generally deserves better than that. The issue to do with the Hard Trust and its, particularly its contributions to the CAP program, those connected with Caribbean Maritime University, Heidel, and other institutions. What we need to know is how that money has been spent. We ask the question, is it not true that a large number of persons who are recruited into the CAP program, a program that we support, are in fact dropping out prematurely? Isn't that the central issue that we should all be able to concentrate on, rather than having to do detective work and whodunits regarding some greedy people and those with inordinate political ambitions that seem to have sullied the whole process? There is an absence of national confidence then in the ministry and in its agencies. Cosmetics are being put in place instead of confronting the real problems that face Jamaican education, and thus every citizen in the midst of July, a bare 5 or 6 weeks before back to school. Every graduation that I have been to, and I am quite certain the same is true for many other members of Parliament, have complained that the state-sponsored breakfast program has been cancelled in recent months to the detriment of our children. That is causing increased absenteeism. Is the press and the public aware that 1/5 of our children are absent from school every day? They are losing 20% of their instructional time. And that is causing the relatively poor outcomes that the Jamaican aspirations for development cannot abide. And also, it emphasizes the opportunity for filtering into antisocial activities and gang behavior, a major problem for national security. Indeed, everything is everything. The thrust towards reformation in the early childhood system, which was a signal activity and interest of the previous administration, has stalled. We are concentrating upon the improvement of some physical facilities, and not enough on the children's nutrition and on the expertise of the teachers who are engaging them, and particularly the re-socialization that has to take place among the early childhood cohort. I also wish to draw your attention to the impending situation that 1/2 of our children who took the grade 6 final examination, the PEP examination, are going to go into high school in September inadequately prepared for the benefit of high school education and headed on a downward escalator of failure because the results in English and mathematics and science are as inadequate as they have proven to be. Parenthetically, I asked the minister in charge of education, where are the percentage scores for PEP that he promised 2 weeks ago and which have not yet been delivered? And what about the remedial programs? that the party has advised are necessary in order to try and catch up what is an abysmal situation. The last matter that I wish to raise to indicate how critical the situation of education is and how distracting and demeaning the unresolved controversies are to the whole system has to do with the expenses of education. You can talk all you want about free education, yes? The truth is that every child going back to school in September has already been presented by with a voucher from their schools. They have been told that it is free, and yet they are being asked to pay. Let us be realistic. It is crass, some would say, it is irresponsible that the education budget this year is flat. In fact, it buys less than it would have last year. And in these circumstances, to be ambivalent and to cut off, in fact, the contributions that parents can make if they can, not ever to be discriminated against if they can't, is a serious logistical and financial issue for the schools. There is one particular school in central Kingston, largely peopled by children of public servants, who had to refund $3 million this year out of contributions because it was in a cavalier fashion suggested that part of the public sector wage package remitted auxiliary fees, which in fact the government says that it had abolished 2 years earlier. They had to take money that they had received and give it back on demand to parents. What is the effect of that? There has been no commensurate increase in their subventions, and therefore they have had to compromise their programs. These are the issues that are central to education, to the development of our children, our most precious asset, and to our hopes for development. What is going on at the ministry, what is not being done by the Prime Minister and the government in this regard, is a body blow. It is a hemorrhaging of the best aspirations of our people. The People's National Party suggests that it needs immediate action and correction.
Thank you. The People's National Party has always believed that education and our school system are pillars for integrity, honesty, social justice, which are the only vehicles that can transform this country. We have seen where in the recent past, since the Minister of Education was removed, that we are just having a grand time in terms of the issues, the hardcore issues to be dealt with. With all due respect to the minister who's given oversight at the Ministry of Education, Honorable Carl Samude, he doesn't have his hands on the throttle. We have tabled a number of questions in Parliament, Ronnie and myself, and 2 weeks ago when we asked for the questions to be answered, the minister said that the Prime Minister, who has a substantive post, is not here. He has to be going to CARICOM, and he is not able to answer those questions. Last week again, the Prime Minister was absent from Parliament, and so those questions are still left hanging in the balance. What we're seeing in our respective schools is that the morale of our students, of the teachers, of the other stakeholders in the education system have been damaged totally. The education system is now like a rudderless ship. No one to give clear-cut guidance as to the way forward. And we ask that the Honorable Prime Minister appoints a full-time Minister of Education with 6 weeks to go. The school system is indeed chaotic, and we need some guidance as it relates to what needs to be done.
The issues relating to the CMU and some of the issues that we have brought forth to the PAAC has to do mainly with the connected parties, that persons who have been closely connected to the minister. We have seen 2 helpers, a driver, counselor, business partner, and now we are seeing where there is a connection between bills being paid through the CMU to a close protection officer that worked directly with the minister. We have seen where payments, or have evidence of payments really, being made to this close protection officer, where invoices are made out to him providing CPO services and security services to the CMU
payments being made in the region of $300,000 from time to time, as low as $120,000. And it follows a pattern of where persons who either worked directly with the minister or worked through being paid through the ministry was also being paid for other services that they claim provided by to the CMU. Also, in questions that I've tabled at the PAAC having to do with the Education and Health Foundation. And we are asking for the Registrar of Companies and Friendly Societies to give some information or delve investigation on that foundation itself. The questions I tabled in the Parliament also had to do with the launch of this foundation in Florida, and if the CMU had paid for the airfares for Professor Pinnock and others from other members of staff, senior staff from the CMU to go to this launch of this this foundation. We're asking the questions: who are the signatories on this foundation? What is this foundation used for? And in the instance, did Gail Campbell Dunwell also raise funds for this foundation, as she was also employed to the CMU to raise funds on behalf of the CMU and her other association with the government itself, other agencies or departments within the government that she works directly for. So, they're outside of calling for the report from the FID and the police that is investigating. But I think that the Auditor General herself needs to do a forensic investigation on the CAPES program that is managed by the CMU, as it will indicate, it would seem as if most of the funds that have been diverted from the CMU went through that program itself. And this is a program that should have been used for engaging unattached youths. As I said previously, that the failure or the non-success of this program has been elaborated by the president himself, that only 45% of those who enrolled in the program actually completed the program. And even some of those that completed the program had complaints of not receiving their stipend or even receiving their certificate even after a year after completing the program. But we're also making the call for the treasurer, Mr. Devon Gardner from the CMU, to also do the right thing and take a leave of absence until the full investigation has been completed, as Mr. Gardner himself would be the one that would have been charged in dispersing these funds in his responsibility as treasurer of the CMU. And seeing that most of these invoices had been signed off by the president, and we would have thought that his whole responsibility to at least verify and to protect the funds of the CMU would be his first and foremost responsibility. But it seems as if he had not done the proper due diligence to do with the disbursement of some of these funds to connected party to the minister. But we also like to find out from the CMU how many other persons who have been connected to the minister that have been paid through the CMU for other services rendered, and those who were managing his campaign or his work within the constituency of Northwest Manchester, Northwest Sentan, Northwest Sentan, who were also paid through the CMU. So there are a lot more unanswered questions that needs to be sought, and hope that the authorities get to the bottom of this and swift action be taken.